When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world.
I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings! You're watching SeptumSin versus the world. I'm SeptumSin. I'm here with Kotobuki Jake.
Right.
And we're here with a special episode just for you.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many shows we like, and we talk about anime a lot here. That's because we both like anime. We were both introduced at different times. I was introduced to anime way back with Maya the Bee on Nickelodeon, of course, and there was another one called The Noozles, which was a kids show.
Right.
And, I mean, I was really small. I wasn't exactly in there. Then, of course, Sailor Moon. But I didn't realize what anime was until a friend of mine's brother had sent me to get some Ranma 1/2 manga. And I started reading that, and it's like, well, he can't have this. And that was the story Ranma and Juliet, which is how I started. And that was the fourth series of comics, was where I actually have that all the way up until they stopped doing the singular comics. So I then started getting into anime at that point. I think you got in a little bit later.
Well, strictly speaking, I also got in really early with kids programming, but similarly, I didn't really recognize it as such. I mean, I grew up watching Superbook, and technically that's an anime.
And Ninja Scroll, because that's a kid's anime.
No, but Ninja Scroll was my first introduction as an anime, and I hated it. Hated it. And no offense to you people that like Ninja Scroll, I've learned to appreciate it. I still think it's a weak-ass movie. But I hated it the first time I saw it. But I love the theme. That was also my first introduction to J-pop, and I love that theme from the movie. So, and then my brother had actually, which is really weird if you know my brother, had actually really gotten into that. And he got into Ghost in the Shell, and I was kind of bored by it. Yeah, but now it's come around, and I really like Ghost in the Shell. I've really gotten into it.
I think the movie itself, the original movie, was kind of uneven. Visually breathtaking, musically amazing, but
I need to see it again. I was not blown away by the second one.
Very much uneven. It's the stuff it followed that really improved upon it.
But at any rate...
and you forgot the best one of all, how I introduced you.
Well, I didn't get that far. I was going to say you...
I thought you were going into the list.
No. No, he was made a point. He decided I needed to know anime. And he gave me some really weird introductory information, including the second Ranma 1/2 movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which when I finally started watching Ranma, I kept waiting, going, I don't know, I don't recognize this, I don't recognize this, I don't. And finally, when I got to the movie, oh yeah, that's the one I saw.
Yep.
But of all things, and I don't recommend this. Don't try this at home, kids. He tried to get me into it using Excel Saga, and it worked. But Excel Saga is not introductory anime. He got lucky because, and then also Evangelion was one of the ones he really made point for me to watch. The first Eva series. And then I know you kept, for years afterwards, he's like, I showed you that. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Like, just random stuff here and there. But, I got a little smattering of the Tenchi series a little smattering here and there. I never got to Sailor Moon until recently. I picked up the movie. I think I mentioned on this channel, I picked up the R movie, the Pioneer release, that was going for like $100 for like $4.50. And that... I watched that probably 4 or 5 years before I ever watched any other Sailor Moon. Maybe even, and I still have only seen through R. I need to see more. Except for part of Crystal, which I was not blown away by the first half of season 1.
Actually, you want to know something interesting on that note? Sage is actually doing Excel Saga on Anime Abandon. And, which if you haven't watched Anime Abandon, if you like anime and you like Nostalgia Critic, you'll like Anime Abandon. And this particular one, believe it or not, and this is what intrigued me by it, he considered it one of his favorite shows. So it's kind of weird to think of that. I never thought of him actually liking it in that manner.
If you've never seen Excel Saga, the basic gist of it is you have Excel, a teenage dingbat with a motor mouth who never shuts up. She could give Deadpool a run for his money. And you got Hyatt, this alien with a very frail constitution that's ill-suited to life on Earth, and she dies frequently. And then you have Il Palazzo, their fearless leader, who is almost as incompetent as Excel is, but who seems leaderish. Sounds familiar, I guess. Yeah. And then the show itself features these two being sent on missions by Il Palazzo, and each episode basically apes a particular genre of anime. And it's like you got spy thrillers, you got sports anime, romantic comedies, and then through it all you have random recurring characters. Pedro, the migrant worker, Menchi, the dog in emergency food supply, who's the best character in the series, and the Great Will of the Macrocosm.
That's a series that actually is one of those examples of where the manga and the series divide tonally and just in general. Like Pedro wasn't even in the manga. Right. And that's one where the director just grabbed it and ran with it. Right. The manga was odd, very odd, but much more serious in tone.
And the creator of the manga is supposedly one of the characters in the show, too.
Yes. So, with that being said, there were a lot of times when I wanted more and more anime. When I got introduced to Naruto, Naruto had not been released in the States yet. So I had to do what most people did back in those days. Illegally download. And that's because when you had a show, unless you waited for years and years to get it licensed, you would never see it. And the only way to see these shows, like Naruto, was to download it. Now you've got the streaming, now you've got a lot of options.
Or you'd be paying an arm and a leg for it. Like, I remember when my brother got Ghost in the Shell. He bought it on VHS. It cost like $35, $40 bucks.
If it was out on VHS. But even then, it's a licensed release.
Yeah.
And it was really a dark time. And with that being said, this is a list of 15 anime that we feel got the shaft, either didn't get a good release or didn't get released at all.
Right.
And I'll go ahead and start with the number 15 on this list. Because we were talking back in the days of download. I paid some like a monthly fee into a site called Naruto Fan. And they were able to get away with this, just like a lot of them, because if it was an unlicensed show, you could get a fan sub and you could download it and they wouldn't come after you because there's no license here, so they're not selling it here anyway. But as soon as they were licensed, that's when they started to disappear, and eventually all the licensing did that. So I said, I'm going to start with A, I'm going to go all the way down. So one of my favorites was this one called Android Animeko 2010. So 8 years ago. But this one, I love the theme song. It's just this radio show, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of Mary Tyler Moore. These little 15-minute episodes, and they're they're trying to do this show together, and they're sent this android radio personality, and that's their catch for the show, is that an android is doing this talk show.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the gist of it. It's very cute. And you've got your Nabiki style character, which actually has her hair, by the way, which is your money grubbing type character. And then you've got your director. You've got your person who only talks in sound effects.
Well, it's useful at a radio station.
Yep, and and your other general characters throughout this. It was a wonderful series, well-made series. I still have a copy sitting with me on the computer, mainly because, well, you can't get it. It's still not licensed. It needs a license. It needs a release. Get on it. Somebody needs to get on it, and that kicks us off.
Yes, and again, it bears repeating that we do not promote illegal downloading. We do not promote having burned copies or bootleg copies.
Oh, no.
But, holy crap, I just remembered one that you totally forgot, that I totally forgot, that we'll come to it in a minute. But, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and grab it.
Well,
But,
I mean, yeah, this is... I talked about this on the bootlegs episode, part of that, and just like with the bootlegs, I don't recommend any of it. But it was a different time back then when some things are just not available at all. Like zilch. No other way of getting it. You could not get it legally unless... The Japanese were very strict on their export rules, so it was very hard. You almost had to go to Japan to get a physical copy. And, I mean, like this one. China was very big on their bootlegs. This is one of the few that remains in my collection because of the release. And that's Kamikaze Kaito Jin. I won't go at length on this because we made it a rule together that we wouldn't add any extra after we had our 15 and our couple honorable mentions. So think of this as just a tack on to the honorable mentions.
yes. Okay. And then...
And then...
And I kind of missed the boat on that download phase anyway.
You're at the end of it.
I was at the tail end of it, and I did a few torrents myself, I will admit, a couple of which are definitely in our honorable mentions, a couple of which I'll talk about on here. But a lot of the ones that he had gotten, I believe you showed me
I
some
showed you
of
a lot
Android.
from that. Matter of fact,
You showed
I think,
me a little bit of Android Anime,
Yeah.
I believe. But there were a few from that, and one big one from that is coming up or two big ones are coming up. But this one that I'm going to lead off with is actually one that's a recent release. There was a phase about 3 or 4 years ago where for one brief period of time, I had enough time to do some heavy-duty streaming.
Number 14.
Number 14. Yes. This was number 14.5. Okay, so number 14. I briefly did a lot of streaming. At the end of that season, which I did write up a small article on my hub pages, but I'm not very good at maintaining that account. There were 2 shows as yet unlicensed at the end of that season. Sentai came along later and picked up when supernatural battles became commonplace. So good for you, Sentai.
Yep.
But the other one remains unlicensed. And I know it's going to be a hard sell. The show has 2 seasons so far. They're very, 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 very short episodes. You can watch both seasons in 2 hours. And the show has an extremely lengthy title, Dana ga nani o iteru ka wakaranai ken. But the English translation is almost as long. I can't understand what my husband is saying. And it's there's a second season. It's called Second Thread. And to be perfectly honest, I'm a little surprised they haven't come out with a third season. I'd like to see a third, maybe a fourth. But it's just a real simple, cutesy little series. It's a slice of life series. Each episode, like I said, not more than 7 minutes long. A good 40, 50 seconds of that is the kick-ass end theme. The end theme is great. And it has some cute little animation that goes with it. And the basic gist of it is the husband is an out-and-out otaku. He is practically a NEET. He does not want to do anything other than watch anime and play games and whatever. And somehow he managed to snag a cute wife. And the bulk of the series is her trying to figure him out. And it's just this real fun little series. It's real good. It gets into some surprisingly poignant territory. It's worth watching. It's worth getting. It's the brevity of the show means that if someone like Aniplex or Ponycan gets it, I would not pay those prices for this show.
$100 an episode.
That would be insane. But if Sentai or Funimation, even Viz, if they get a hold of it, I will get this show if it's available. I think it should be available. It's a lot of fun, and I think it would be a pretty easy
I can see
sell.
it as a Sentai release.
Yeah. And I guess on the next one, huh?
We're not going in a back and forth because as we ranked it, we brought forward those that we had that we'd come across on our own, and then divvied up the ones that we came across together.
Right. Basically, we've got 8 on here that are both of us put our little 2 cents in, but the rest of them are our individual picks. Yep. And the next one, I'm a little... Did you ever watch this?
I have.
Okay. It's Makoku Kankatsuhen, a.k.a. Makoku The Movie.
That was the one on the island, wasn't it?
No.
No.
Actually, I thought about talking about the OVAs because they've never been released here. We could consider the OVAs a side to this. The movie is my main focus here. The one on the island actually is a lost chapter of the manga.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see that released here. If you've...
You have to release the rest of the series again.
Yes, and actually we're thinking about an anime re-release video, so stay tuned. Makoku will be on that one. Makoku is the best show ever made. Period. I love it. It is awesome. And the movie is weird. The movie takes place within the final episode of the series. Because the final episode of the series does have some major time jumps. The movie takes place... I'm not going to tell you too much about the movie because that gets into spoiler territory. But it takes place within that final episode. The weird part is... it does not appear to have been animated by the same studio. It looks totally different. And it may not have been. I don't know for sure. I think it was some of the same people, but not everyone. But it's an entertaining little movie. It's a fun little movie. It's worth having. And as a completionist, I want to have all of the Ikoku. And not only that, there are 3 OVA episodes. One of them is a straight clip show. I would not pay for that by itself.
Don't forget the live action movie.
Well, we're talking anime here.
Yeah.
But Ikoku does have a live-action movie from the 80s and a 2-episode special from the early aughts.
If you're talking like if you're talking a completionist.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of these have live-action components, and that could be a separate thing, because there's so many anime and manga have live-action projects that we will never see here.
Oh, never.
And it ticks me off, because some of them are not bad.
Oh,
and some of them are really good, actually. I mean, we've talked about the Nana movies. The first Nana movie was great. That's one of the few that did come over here. But, or the Honey and Clover movie was pretty good,
that one did come over, but the TV show did not.
Yeah, well, that was Korean, right?
That's
a whole separate thing. But anyway, so with the Ikoku, I don't remember the gist of one of the OVAs. One of them was a clip show, but one of them was the Desert Island episode.
That was good.
Which is based on a chapter of the manga. Ikoku is one of the most faithful anime out there.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few things they changed. They dropped an entire character, but they brought him back for the movie, strangely enough. But the one of the few chapters that was not animated was an OVA, or was not part of the series, was an OVA. So the movies and the OVA, they could be one package or they could be released separately.
Yeah.
Viz held the original release of the show. They need to get on a re-release that includes the entire
Well,
thing.
heck with Viz. Just whoever takes it. I mean, Funimation.
Sentai currently has the rights to Rinne.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll take on Ikoku.
Though at the price per season, it would still be, because they're still charging like $40 a season for Rinne.
Right,
So,
but also that's a much newer
actually,
release.
40 to 70 per
Much
season.
newer release. If they want the tack they did with Nadia and do like 2 volumes, that might
That
be
would be good. As long as they don't do $40 to $70 a season,
Yeah,
that would be rough.
right. But anyway,
Well, so let's move on. A series that I never bothered to complete because of reasons, but it also went into the over 100 range. We've talked about idol type series for a while, K-On! Being the most prevalent in that group, which is getting a re-release. But this one is a series called Kiran Revolution, our number 12.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kiran Revolution follows this girl who's a regular high school girl. She ends up falling in love with these 2 idols. Actually, one of the 2 idols, really. And so she decides she's going to be an idol herself in order to get with them. And that's the premise of the series.
so she follows the path that Rin accused Kyoko of in Skip Beat,
Yes.
basically.
She actually followed that path. She's Kyoko is much smarter than Kiran. She is not exactly bright, but it features the music of Morning Musume,
Musume.
and it is actually quite well done musically. The soundtrack alone, I've got several CDs from the soundtrack of this series, and so as I said, the CDs. Which, this is Kiran right here. She has her cute little cat sidekick, which, by the way, is much more intelligent and much more capable than she is. Pretty girly series overall. These are the 2 that she's trying to go after. But in the end, it was a very fun series. But after the 100th episode, they started going for computer animation, almost all computer animation. And it wasn't excellent animation. It was very, it was kind of choppy animation. I really felt like the quality of the show dipped. And besides, it was starting to go nowhere towards the end. I don't know if they wrapped it up or if they got it done. I hope they did. It was a fun show, though, from what I actually did see of it. And again, I watched over 100 episodes of it, and it kept me coming back again and again. As far as the idol shows are concerned, if you like those shows, you should find this. Check it out if you can catch it.
Of course, the main thing, I have not seen this show, so the main thing I know is that screen capture you kept showing me of her with the takoyaki.
There's another one there that came afterwards. And she's trying, and they say like they're talking about, well, she's this really beautiful girl, and then she says, "It's like, hey, Kiran, look over here," and she's got this like, and she's got this piece of squid sticking out of her mouth.
Yeah.
And it is a hilarious show. It is well worth checking out. So number
check it out.
11.
11. And quick side note that I meant to mention before. About I can't understand what my husband is saying. I understand it's the same mangaka behind Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
Huh.
And that apparently is a very popular show
It is
right
a very
now.
popular show.
So maybe that might get this one released. Hopefully
Yeah.
that popularity. Or if nothing else, if you like Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, maybe you can write them a letter or something. Anyway, so the next one is actually based on a series of light novels, and recently got a re-release in a disappointing format, supposedly.
And a new series.
That's what I meant, really.
Yeah.
The next one is the OVA episodes. There's 3 of them that I know of. The OVA episodes for Kino no Tabi, The Beautiful World, which is released here several times under the name Kino's Journey. The problem is, ADV did, 2 releases?
Yeah.
And Sentai has done at least 3. And nobody yet has released any of the OVA episodes.
Not a single release of the full series.
Right. The, do it?
I mean, it's not. To me, it's not the full series.
Yeah.
Like that.
Because basically each of the OVAs is an additional episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's the land of the
diseases.
the land of diseases, the land of, I don't remember the other titles, but the land of the diseases. I remember that was like the super sterile.
Yeah.
It was like the whole kingdom is like a hospital basically, and it was a fascinating episode. And then there's the episode where Kino is a little girl. Learning to become.
Flashback.
Yes, it's a prequel episode. One of the most affecting episodes in the entire series is an episode called The Land of Adults.
Yeah.
And that's the one where you learn Kino's origin. But this episode expands upon her origin, and the fact that no one saw fit to release it here, I'm like, why not? And there's also the fact that there have been at least 5 American releases and they haven't yet done a Blu-ray upgrade.
Yeah.
I'm like, do a Blu-ray release including the OVAs. And as a side note, they did recently do a new Kino's Journey series. It did not get particularly good notices. People were disappointed by it. Yeah. But I have not yet heard any release announcements. I'd still like to see it, and I'd like to have it as a completionist. I'd like to have it in the collection. But the original Kino's Journey is one of the best anime out there and deserves a full release. No question about it.
It's definitely in the top. Yeah. We'll have to do a consensus of top of our top anime and see what we can come up with.
And I will admit, that was one of the ones he introduced me to. He's like, you gotta see the show, you gotta see the show.
It's excellent. Excellent show.
Yeah. Okay. And the next one, I may be jumping the gun complaining about this one's lack of a release.
I think it will come to America eventually.
But the thing is, it has already been submitted for Oscar consideration last year.
Ignored.
It got a Fathom event screening this spring, and there's still no announcement at all about its physical release here. So I'm going ahead and talking about it, and that is the movie Koe no Katachi. It's called A Silent Voice. I have read the manga. It's a short manga, about 8 volumes, and it's flippin' awesome. And basically the idea, it's not perfect, and it does rub some raw nerves for some people, and supposedly the movie really does. But basically, the series is about this kid who is a little brat. He's a terrible little kid who has these 2, minions that follow his every move, and the girl who's almost as big a brat as he is, who kind of secretly crushes on him. And they are elementary school kids, and into their little life comes a girl who is deaf. And he has no clue how to deal with this. And naturally, he decides, well, I'm just going to pick on her. Yeah. He becomes this horrible, horrible bully. The whole school goes along with it. The teacher goes along with it. Until the girl finally is forced to leave. And years later, and it really the whole school, egg on their face. Everyone gets brushed with this, you terrible people. They all put it on the one kid. He becomes the scapegoat. Yeah. And he grows up being bullied and treated like crap because everyone blamed him. And in high school, he meets the girl again and has a obsession almost with making things right. And it's one of those things I talked last week about Cross-Ange, about the idea of sometimes some people think characters don't deserve redemption. I like to see them try. You know what I mean? And sometimes people actually earn it. And to my mind, that's what this series, it really is a good series. It really does get into the whole issue of bullying and the whole issue of people not being able to treat each other fairly or treat each other, well. And it's a well done one. The movie is from Kyoto Animation, and being a KyoAni production, it's freaking gorgeous. I have not gotten to see the whole thing yet, but I may have finally tracked down a way to watch it. Oh. I didn't get to go to the Fathom screenings because they didn't come to this city.
Oh, yeah.
But from what I've seen, it's gorgeous. The opening credits scene actually uses The Who for the soundtrack, which is kind of interesting. They did a really good job with the production values. The movie is about 2 hours and 15 minutes, which probably would be a fair length for that length of story. I will have to tell you, once I've seen it, what I really think of it. But in the meantime, I'm like, this really does need to get an American release. With the stuff that's barreling through, getting releases without so much as a buy your leave, stuff like this shouldn't have to wait around so long. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get announcement news soon. But in the meantime, I'm definitely going to put my voice out there that this show needs a release. Yeah.
So, number 9.
Yes.
Looks like I've got a little bit of a run here.
You do.
Alright, well, we're going to start with one of my favorites that I have seen all the way through, and it was on Hulu for a while, so yes, you can watch it legally.
Or could. You never know with Hulu.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It may not be, but it was on there for a while. And that is the series Full Moon, or I think it's Full Moon...
it's not Full Moon?
Not Full Moon. Full Moon, I can't pronounce it.
Full Moon was Sagashite, isn't it? Something along those lines.
And this is a series about a small girl, I think it's a 12-year-old girl, who really, really wants to sing. But she's not able to sing because she has throat cancer. And if she gets her throat operated on, she has a better chance of living. But she loses her voice entirely, and therefore can't achieve her dreams. So she's approached by these 2 Grim Reapers. Very interesting take on Grim Reapers. These Shinigami. And they are willing to grant her one wish because she's going to die. And her wish is to be an idol. So they allow her to become this magical girl idol. We were talking about idol shows. And she is able to work on living out her dream. But as the clock ticks on, her life slowly starts to ebb away, and that's when the true drama of the series starts. So, the series itself is partially released. Viz started a single volume campaign, but ended like halfway through. Which is really sad, because it is a great series. The opening music, I really love that one. That is a great song. The music in the series is also really good. Eternal Snow is one of the few Japanese songs that I actually have by memory. Because it is just that good. The the characterizations in the story, it gets very deep as it goes on for a Magical Girl series, not like Kiran. But to me, it is a big shame we're missing out on this. We need a nice full release special edition with the soundtrack included in this release. I believe that's how it should be released. It's like a 50 episode series, and this thing just needs to get to shores here. I don't know.
More shows need to include the soundtrack. I like how Sentai does that with some of their bonus sets and some of their regular sets. Crusade in a Foreign Labyrinth, the Dusk Maiden of Amnesia.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they did that with more of their shows, and if more companies did, if Viz and Funimation.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the ones we mentioned, like if Sentai, when they do their re-release of Kino's Journey next time, they need to include the soundtrack, because those opening and ending themes are two of the best ever.
The ending theme was A Beautiful World, which is what they called the sequel series, by the way,
right.
A Beautiful World.
And then the opening one, All the Way, was just a phenomenal song by Miyuki Sawashiro, who did most of the themes for Full Metal Panic, and I really want to hear more of her stuff. I've not gotten to,
And so we continue. But these other two you're much more familiar with. I don't think you were as familiar with Full Moon. I'm as familiar with that as I am with number 7, but yeah. Well, yeah, we're about both equally familiar with number 7. We kind of flipped over that one.
Right.
But number 8. This is a series that was vastly popular, and in Japan remains vastly popular. It still continues. It's in the 900s.
It's longer than One Piece.
Yes. And it continues to get top-notch ratings. And that is Detective Conan, which came out in the United States as a series called Case Closed through Funimation. They released it in 5 seasons, 150 episodes, and 7 movies in the series, which, by the way, went beyond the 150 episodes timeline-wise. They actually had a character in the last 2, I believe, movies that was not involved, which was a doctor who purposefully took the same type of poison that Conan took. Basically the series is Conan is... he's named this because, Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes. This is a mystery series, mostly a murder mystery, but they did do others. Though there's a heck of a lot of murders going on. So, Conan, he's a very... this teenager, he's this genius. He solves mysteries like this. He's extremely intelligent, and everybody loves him. And he stumbles upon this group, which doesn't quite love him, and decides they're going to bump him off. So they give him this special drug to kill him off, but it ends up instead turning him into a child. Only in body. So now he has to figure out everything about the people the organization tried to do him in, while also trying to adjust to his new life as a child, which he decides not to try and seek out any antidote necessarily, because he does not want to tip them off that he's still alive. Now, this has been a long time, and he has still not yet done this, gotten even with them. Though the organization does show up a lot more in the series after the end of the Funimation release.
It does make me wonder if he's really that great a detective, but yeah.
But most of the episodes are almost a murder an episode. And he moves in, living with this girl and her father, and the girl is the one that he was in love with, and they were going out, and then the father is, a very incompetent detective himself, so Conan uses him in order to try and, as a proxy, to try and solve his mysteries with, which of course boosts his popularity way up.
Is he like Zenigata's younger brother or something?
Zenigata is much more competent than this guy. Zenigata is actually a generally competent detective. The problem with Zenigata is that he's facing up against Lupin. This guy is incompetent. This guy is truly incompetent.
Now I know Lupin and Conan have done some crossovers
There
at this
is.
point. I wonder.
And they are out here. And but that's the thing. Very popular in Japan. We need to get back on this. There have been talks before about continuing the series, but it said this is just not popular here. I said, well, that's because when you stopped it was about the point where it started to get really good from what I hear. And I'm really kind of sad that it's still down to just 150 episodes.
Not to mention they did 2 or 3 printings of the same seasons without bothering to try and go further with the further printings.
So I do warn you, some of the movies are out of print here, so they're a little bit harder to get. You've seen some of it, haven't you? Haven't you seen
Very
episode
little.
or two?
Yeah, very little, but I've, enough to know the gist of it. Yeah.
Number 7.
Probably could cross over with it at some point.
Yeah, this is a series that is on a lot of lists of people saying this needs to be completed here. And that is a series called Monster. This is a series that neither one of us has actually seen, which is a rare thing. I think we've each seen at least parts of certain shows on the list,
Right.
if we haven't seen all of it. But Monster, neither one of us have seen, I think, more than clips.
Right.
And this is sort of an American Psycho type deal, where you've got somebody who's got severe antisocial personality disorder, who is not as he seems. He's this monstrous killer monster. And that's really what the series moves around. He's sort of the center of the series. The series had multiple seasons, but only one was released here in the United States. And no, I don't have it. It does bother me to see that the series was not released here. You don't have much more, I don't think.
No, basically what he said, I mean, it's a show that by reputation, it's a very highly rated. I think A&N had it. It's like one of
it's
their
very highly rated.
It's
Yeah,
a very highly rated show.
I just never got into it because I knew I could never really finish it.
Yeah, I know. I want to see it. I'm curious about it. Yeah, definitely. Hey.
Okay, so that's number 6.
And now for something completely different.
Slightly.
Okay, so we spoke, I think last week, when he presented Bananya, we spoke of the show that should hopefully follow in its wake. A little show called Nyanpire.
Oh, yeah.
Very similar art style, actually, to this one. It's about a little kitten who gets bitten by a vampire and turns into Nyanpire. And that's really the gist of it. It's a ludicrously silly little show, but it's so cute. It's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
The episodes are what, 12 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like how this
7?
is.
I don't remember how long they were, but they're short episodes.
Because this one's 13 episodes and only 40 minutes long.
And we had long thought there was probably no way it would ever catch a licensor's interest, but Bananya.
Oh, yeah.
So, and Nyanpire is fun. It's really fun. It has some great moments. It's definitely not high art. It's definitely not deep. It's not something that Criterion's going to be putting out a collection for it.
It's cute.
It is. And it definitely deserves a release. And we are very disappointed that it has not been released.
That's a terrible entry into Criterion. First anime, Nyanpire. But it is a cute thing, and cute is not so terribly bad, though.
No, sometimes you need sort of like a little antidote, sort of to whatever's going on. And of course it has its other supporting characters too. I don't, various...
Meowzume.
Yeah, Meowzume is... and what was the angel? Is it...
oh yeah, there was an angel.
Is it Meowkle or something like that? I don't remember right now.
And it was, like I say, it was in general, it was a fun little series. You see, they're missing opportunities. Hot Topic could have a series of shirts with Nyanpire on it.
Exactly. Nyanpire shirts would sell. No question.
And with him with the bottles of hot sauce, ketchup, and blood orange juice.
That was such a great scene. I asked him if he could find it, and he couldn't find it. It's just
too hard to
He
pull.
opens up the fridge, and there's a picture of blood orange soda, a Tabasco sauce, and ketchup. And he can't decide.
Now, this one does have full episodes on YouTube, so if you want to check it out, just type in Yawnpire. And that episode is on there. It's just I can't pull it down to show some clips of.
Okay.
So, number 5.
Number 5 is a show that, much like Kino's Journey, I have been perturbed at the apparent lack of interest in getting the OVAs of a major series, despite the fact that at least one of them is integral to the story.
Yeah.
Sentai has done a very good job, for the most part, with the series To Love Roo. I presented a couple weeks ago the complete collection that included the first series, Moto To Love Roo and To Love Roo Darkness, seasons 1 and 2.
Yep.
But between To Love Roo and Moto To Love Roo, there is a 6-episode OVA that is part of the story that introduces Lala's twin sisters, who are major parts of the later series. They're introduced in the OVA. And then there's also the Trouble Darkness OVAs, which I don't remember how many episodes total, but there's 3 Trouble Darkness OVAs. None of these have ever gotten a North American release.
Maybe they could just go all in one volume, which would
They
be
could.
And I mean, that's the one where they actually had was it Rito? Is that his name? The main male character.
Rito, I think was his name.
That's like that's the one that first introduced the female Rito when she messed up. I don't know whether they make a return to that in the later ones. I haven't watched Moto To Love Roo or
recall.
the other 2 series.
Yeah, I think I've only seen. I think I saw the first series in the OVA.
Yeah, that's all I've seen.
I don't remember if I saw Moto To Love Roo. It's not a brilliant series. It's a fun series. It does get very much into the harem antics. It's very much a guy-centered series.
It's a modernized. To me, it's a modernized version of Urasayatsura.
In a lot of ways, Lala is very much like Lum Invader, but she's actually, I think, more intelligent than Lum.
She's much less jealous, too.
She's much less jealous. She's actually very permissive.
Yes.
But she's a genius inventor, which Lum really wasn't a genius at much of anything.
Yeah. And,
well, I guess putting up with Otaro takes
and Rito is definitely not Otaro.
No, thank God. And then, of course, To Love Roo has Golden Darkness, who's a fun character on her own. It's not... It's one that deserves to be properly released and finished. Yeah. All right. Speaking of...
Number 4.
Mm-hmm.
There is a series that is a great amount of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And in the late 90s, early 2000s, this had quite a life on Funimation. It was actually one of the early ones to get releases on that, at least to what I've seen. So that series is known as Kodomo no Omocha, or Child's Toy, or the United States version, Kodacha.
Mm-hmm.
This had an exquisite voice cast. Matter of fact, it highly reminded me of Fruits Basket because of the voice cast. Every time I was hearing the main character from Fruits Basket, I kept thinking Sana. Which, they're not all that different in a lot of ways.
There are actually, the series overall have several
Overlaps.
The art styles are kind of similar. You have the super weirdo, which I think was her mother in this one, right?
Yes, her mother.
And it's Shigeru in the other one.
So this essentially is about a girl who is a child star, kind of a child prodigy, and she's the star of this show, which is named Child's Toy. And they're just in this with the silly teacher who is the comedian, and she's the lead student in the show. And this goes over her everyday struggles with school and and boys and just doing weird stuff in between. She's a very energetic young child. And in general, the series is a lot of fun. There are serious moments, there are dark moments, and the series went for 4 seasons, which is, I think, almost 120 episodes. Again, it's either 100 or 120.
Sounds about right, yeah.
But there's one problem. They only released the first 2 seasons here in the United States. And this has been the case for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And the worst thing of all, the first 2 seasons are out of print.
Mm-hmm.
What you're looking at here is actually probably easily available. Some of these volumes are pretty easy to get, but there are certain ones that are worth quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You've got even more valuable. You got the Babbitt boxes, don't you?
I do have the Babbitt boxes, yes.
So, I mean, he's got the special edition boxes.
Yeah. Which were basically just fancy repackaging for these, but, you know, they're still pretty cool.
So I've got that, and then I've got the Thin Pack Season 2 release.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually seen the rest of the series, and I'll admit it's not that good. The first part of it is actually pretty decent. You have a couple of storylines which are nice, but then they go to New York. And that's when they decide we're going to dedicate each episode to another 10 minutes of that episode to replaying I think it's like a 1-minute clip where they're doing their practice for this supposed performance in New York over and over and over and over again. The writing has got much lazier. I understand why it didn't get a release here in a way, because it really wasn't as good as the rest of the series writing-wise. But there's a completionist part of me that says this needs to be released. And if we do that list of things that need a re-release, this is going on that for a full release, because it's hard to get, and it really is a gem of a series.
Mm-hmm.
So, number 3.
Number 3, okay. And this also is one that falls more into the completion category than a never been released category, but it's never been released here on digital media, so I'm going to say it's never been released because, you know, apologies to our friends in the Rebel Gaming Club and certain other people out there. Most people don't really do a lot with VHS anymore. I have a few in my collection, but I have no way to play them. I hang on mainly for sentimental.
These are really hard to get.
I mean, I never did get any anime on VHS, I don't think. But our next one on here is one that I have been wanting for years, and it's the Rumic World specials.
Oh.
You may have seen, or you may be... No, I'm going to leave it at that. There are a number of items that could fall under this umbrella. Genian did full releases for Mermaid's Forest and the Rumiko Takahashi Anthology. There's the anniversary specials that came out a few years later that have never been released here. They could be, you know... When we do the re-release one, we'll definitely be covering some of them. But the early ones are the ones I want to talk about here. These are the ones that came out, I think, about 88, 89, 90, that general vein. Most of them came out between the end of Maison Ikkoku and the end of Ranma and Half, that general time frame. And most of them, as I'm defining it, if you know differently, by all means, let us know in the comments. But from what I've been able to determine, this collection is defined as 6 specials. Mm-hmm. And one of them, Ichi Poundo no Fukuin, 1 Pound Gospel, has never had a U.S. release.
But a fun, sure.
It's fun, it's forgettable, it's kind of fluff. I've actually read a fair bit of the manga, and the show is not... there is also a live action show. This is one of those live action shows we were talking about that may be a nice one. You know, there's the series about a boxer and a nun who's kind of, sort of, she's like his fan cheering section. And he's a glutton who's always having trouble keeping his weight down to go in the ring. It's a good little one. It's fun. The one that's completely forgettable that was released by Central Park Media was Maris the Chojo, which was just sort of an action-adventure, fully an 80s show. I have actually never seen the Ningo no Mori, the Mermaid Forest. I've never seen the original anime that produced. That was also released by Central Park Media. And the last two that were released by Central Park Media, Fire Tripper was great.
Oh, yeah.
It actually was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. And Waro Hyoteki, which is also called The Laughing Target. Creepy ass show, but it was good. It was
You never watched Mermaid Scar?
I haven't gotten to it.
Oh, really?
No, I said Mermaid Forest.
Oh, Mermaid Scar. Sorry, I mixed them up.
Didn't I say Mermaid Forest? I thought I did. So those four, Fire Tripper, The Laughing Target, Maris the Chojo, and Mermaid Forest, got VHS releases by Central Park Media, and the license apparently was never picked up by any other distributor. And then there's Ningyo no Kizu, Mermaid Scar. I have seen a very poor quality, but I have nonetheless seen Mermaid Scar, and it's freaking awesome. It is one of the best horror movies ever made. It's like 45 minutes, but it's definitely one of the best horror movies ever made. And I have seen the remake of Mermaid Scar at the end of the Mermaid Forest series. It's a 2-episode special, and it's really good, but there's something missing. And I don't really know how to define that. The original one had that something. It was dark, it was twisted, it was absolutely awesome. And Viz released it along with Ranma and Half. Those were their flagship titles.
You can see lots of commercials for it.
Yeah. When they started with the VHS in North America, those were their flagship titles. They have released Ranma at least 4 times. They just finished a Blu-ray re-release. They have never put Mermaid Scar on digital media. They need to do that. They really do.
If you want to see these, I don't know about the Mermaid's Forest because that's the only one of that entire group that I haven't seen. They're all on YouTube, which is much easier than the means I had to see them originally.
Yeah, I think I got. I know you showed me Mermaid Scar was like ripped from a VHS copy onto. Yeah, I think with Fire Tripper, The Laughing... I think all 4 of the others I watched torrents. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah, that's how I originally watched them. And I except for 1 Pound Gospel, because that one I watched on YouTube.
Might have watched that one on YouTube. And incidentally, I didn't mention it before, but that was how I saw the Makoku movie. That was up on YouTube. I don't know if it still is.
Well, my viewing of it was a lot longer ago, and that was via torrent, I will admit.
But again, I'm assuming these 6 are what you would need for the Rumik World special. I haven't been able to find out for sure if there were any more out there, but that's a good size package for a single release. Even if they did like 2 or 3 releases where they're broken up, depending on who puts them out, that could be good. But I think that would be a great project for just a single release. And they are way past due for DVD release.
Well, I mean, me, I'm a fan of Rumiko Takahashi. I've watched pretty much all of her stuff except for Renee and that Mermaid's Forest episode.
Well, and also with the anniversary specials, I was never able to track down the Inuyasha one, and I could only find Urusei Yatsura as a torrent.
They were on YouTube for a while.
I never could find it. And I could never find the Urusei Yatsura. Every time I tried to watch it, it corrupted about 1.5 minutes into it. I never got to watch the full thing.
But again, and you can get that on a on a copy similar to this.
Right.
I have seen them on eBay, but I would rather not go that way. And you can't get the regular Rumik World ones, though, on that. Even the VHS are really hard to find. So if you find any of these on VHS, get them. They're worth something. You should check them out. If anything, enjoy them. They're very good. So, number 2. This is a series both of us have wanted for a while.
Actually, it's worth noting that we came up this list by ranking our own top 15 lists, and there was a lot of overlap. The top 8 were all on both lists, but these two we both gave these the exact same position. This was our number 2, and the other one was the number 1.
So you can tell we thought alike, on at least at the top of the list. And so we're splitting these up. So I'm doing number 2, which is Cheeky Angel. You can Tenshi na Kanamaiki.
Tenshi na Kanamaiki.
Yeah, I'm not very good with the language. But this one, like I said, translates to Cheeky Angel. The manga has been released here. I believe Viz is the one who released
Viz put it out. It's out of print. It's hard to find, but it is out there.
So, but the series, which I believe is also around 50 episodes, is a hard one. That's another one that, again, I got in touch with by torrenting, and I'm glad I got to do it, because this is a series about this young boy who was playing, and they come across this genie. And then the genie, then basically he makes this wish, but the wish backfires and turns him into a girl. And everybody around him, except for his best friend, remembers him as always being a girl. So after that point, we speed through about 10 years, and he, actually less than that, but then he's a teenager and one of the most beautiful girls in the school. So the whole of the series is trying to, maintain his masculineness as and toughness, while trying to find a way to change back. The series is very well done, very well written. It's fun. It has one of my favorite all-time openers.
Grand Blue?
Yep.
It's a good song.
And also, at the end, you start to question yourself about how much is real and how much is not real. And these, again, it does a very good job of making you think and making you enjoy the series just in general the whole time. It is a sad, sad thing that this series never got an American release.
What's more, the main character, her name is Megumi Amatsuka, is voiced by Megumi Hashibara, and it is one of her better roles. And the thing is, Megumi is a phenomenal role. I don't think you really covered it. She does have the ability to be extraordinarily tomboyish. She does believe she's a boy, but by the time she was in high school, she's pretty much in a josama. She has fully mastered being, both ends of the spectrum. I like the character for her ambiguity in a lot of ways. And then, of course, you've got the Megu-chan Protection Club, which I'm surprised you didn't mention that. That's a kind of a
It's
fun
been a long time since I've watched this series.
What was the main guy's name? The kind of dingbat.
He's the tough guy. All I remember is there was one scene where, because he never quite got us through his head what she was trying to say. I do remember that he would have board meetings with different versions of his conscience and self, and all of them were as dumb as he was. Kind of like
Kyoko and Skippy, like talking to all the little voices in her head. This guy did a similar thing. But yeah, Cheeky Angel it's a wonderful show. It baffles me that no one has attempted to put it out.
Oh yeah.
I mean, most of the shows we've talked about have at least gotten some effort made. Not all of them, but a lot of them have. But this one, it's been crickets. I've heard nothing.
Oh yeah.
And again, the manga's out there, so if nothing else, you can, if you're lucky. I found half of it for sale once at a half-price bookstore.
Yeah.
I almost jumped on it. I kind of wish I had. It is one I'd like to read. I'd really like to read. I probably still have the
I'm sure you can
CD
find it
somewhere.
online,
Yeah.
like Manga Panda or something like that.
Right.
And I mean, it's still sitting on a hard drive. I did manage to rescue it, and it's one that I want to keep.
Right.
And it's one of a few. I only have a couple that I still keep hold of. And we've already discussed one on this list. There's one in the honorable mentions, and there's a couple of live action series that will never ever come to America.
Right.
But speaking of honorable mentions, let's take a close look at a few. We had a lot on the list, and we keep thinking about more. I've thought about 2 actually while I was on this list, but I'm not going to mention them because again we agreed to keep it down to a lower number. But here's a few honorable mentions. And when you're looking at these types of honorable mentions, these are the ones, and we both compared our lists, and we took the ones that we had both agreed on first. Since we both got them on the list, we put them on there. And we also came up with 15 each with a couple honorable mentions. And those that were the lowest on both lists that we did not agree on were the ones that were shoved down to the honorable mention status, or just stayed honorable mention.
Which does not in any way mean to...
Oh, no.
They are ones that require American release eventually. And definitely if some of you... and we fully recommend that you all give us your own ideas too, which ones we missed. But the last one, the big one, the number one, the why is this not released yet, is a show, and he's going to go grab the manga here. It is called Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, or Goodbye Mr. Despair. And I absolutely love, let's see, does this have on the subtitle on the front? I love the subtitle of the manga. It says, The Power of Negative Thinking. But basically, the show is all about that. Oh, yes.
All about that.
You gotta have that. That is, okay, so the opening pages of the manga, the opening episode of the anime, they start the same way. You got this cute high school girl walking through a sunlit, cherry-blossomed lane, talking about how everything's lovely, everything's good, life is great, life is wonderful, look at all the cherry blossoms. And then she turns the corner and sees that sight of the man in the cherry grove hanging from a rope. And she rushes forward and pulls down. No, don't die. No, she rushes forward and yanks down and yanks until the rope comes free and he drops down. And then he glares at her and says, "What if I died?" And then 45 minutes later, he's in front of a classroom full of students, and she's in his class. And they are polar opposites. They are flip sides of a coin. Nozomi Itoshiki is the eternal pessimist.
Yes.
But honestly, I liken him to the Japanese version of Charlie Brown. He is everything is clouds and rain, and nothing will ever go right, and nothing is good. Yeah. But there's that glimmer of hope. I'm going to kick that football. And then someone in his class plays Lucy and yanks the football away. And then you got the main girl, Kafka Fura, there's no better way to put it. She is psychotically optimistic. And one of the best parts in that early part is where he is supposed to give out a student dream survey a goals survey, student goals survey, and he says, I'm going to give you a student despair survey. Don't tell me what you want to be when you grow up. Tell me what you despair that you will never be able to be. And then they get in this whole discussion where he tries to shoot her down, and she says the possibility exists. And then finally she writes on hers, God, an alien, a Pororakoian, and this other teacher's like, I worry about this student. And he's like, yes.
This is a series that is very, very text heavy.
Very text heavy.
So if you are somebody who does not like something that is very talky, very cerebral, don't watch this. Don't read this. Especially don't read this, because it's even worse in the manga.
It's very, very, very heavy as well. Very, very much so. Very heavy on Japanese pop culture, Japanese history. You have to at least have a basic grounding, which is probably why this show was licensed by Anime Works. They released one volume in limited amount that sank without a trace. Then it was picked up by Media Blasters. Media Blasters sat on it for, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
And finally dropped the license without ever putting it out. They're scared. They don't know what to do with it. Think of it as a Japanese equivalent of Futurama, South Park, and Family Guy, or The Simpsons. It's that kind of show, but
much more philosophical, though.
But it's more some of them get into philosophy, but it's the Japanese take on it. Think about those shows rolled together with Monty Python, but with a Japanese stamp, and that you get a rough idea. It's very dry humor. But it's freaking awesome, and I think some of the illustrations we gave, most of the classmates, most of the people in the class are anime tropes taken to an extreme.
Oh yeah.
Or a particular what am I trying to say? A mental illness taken to the extreme. You got the class rep who is psychotically OCD. You got the character who's a straight up stalker. You have the one who's a straight up hikikomori. You got the one who's like the penniless urchin stereotype taken to the nth degree. You've got the one who's the Ojo-sama taken to the nth degree. They're all extremes, they're all caricatures, and they use that to set up this really biting humor, and it is a hilarious show. And what's more, the ending themes are awesome. The music in the series is Zesei Bijin is still my favorite anime theme. And there's what's up?
If you want to see or listen to any of these openers or enders, just as a reminder, YouTube is your friend. YouTube is not our friend, which is why we're not going to play any for you, because even a few moments of a Japanese song will trigger a strike. But
I'm pretty sure you can find all of these themes on YouTube. And I particularly recommend Zesei Bijin, Marionette, Zetsubo Restaurant, Omamori, and the one opening theme that was specifically intended to be thumbing their nose at anime is actually one of the best themes, Goi ni Maya. This show is huge. There's the first series. There's Zoku Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei with the OVA called Goku Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei. And then there's Zan Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei. And the OVA for that is Zan Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei Bangaichi. And so there's a lot there. And I can see why licensors are wary of it. But it's awesome. And it needs to come over here.
Matter of fact, my introduction to it was Zoku first, which was just like, it just threw me right into it. But and I'll tell you, as somebody who's watched all the anime and has read all 14 of the manga volumes that have come out here in the United States, I don't know if there were more, but if you are not big on reading, of course, don't bother with this. But the show itself is much easier to follow. And I will say this as somebody who has sometimes a harder time keeping up with the subtitles when they're quick. it throws a lot at you, but not like the manga does. The manga throws it at you in like 90 balls at a time. This one throws about 4 or 5 at you at a time. And there's something about the anime, and this one I would definitely recommend the anime over the manga if you can get at it. But both are fun.
Yeah.
So that's it.
That is a wrap, huh?
So, in any case, I hope you enjoyed our list. Let us know if you want us to do any more lists, or if you had a favorite series that was incomplete or not released here in the United States.
We definitely like to know what people think, and we're hoping, of course, that the right people will see this. Maybe the fine folks at Pied Piper that put out Skip Beat might might see this and be like, okay. And I know I believe I sent them an email saying Cheeky Angel needs to be their next project. But and again, Kamikaze Kaito-jan, I can't believe we forgot that one.
Yeah.
I forgot about the original Gintama series, which Sentai gave up on after 4 volumes.
Final Approach, which was one that I remember.
Final Approach, yes. Final Approach was forgettable, but it had was it the ending theme that I loved so much?
Yeah, it was very good.
Love the ending theme to that. That's great. But it was an alright show. A lot of the shows that we saw back in the days of torrents have been released. And that's part of the insult with ones like Cheeky Angel that shows like Ninomiya-kun, whatever that one.
Yeah,
that one.
My apologies.
Now, of course, Guardian Ninja Mamoru.
Oh,
I'm thrilled that came out. The banana song, yes. And Happiness. Those were some lesser ones from that time that we got to see come out in America. So maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope.
There's some definitely bad ones that got out.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we are here, you're there, and you need to subscribe, you need to like,
share,
you need to comment.
Comment, yes.
And that is a wrap.
All right.